Hi folks, welcome to another flying video with Tony and I in our amazing little Aeros Microlights. Our planned destination was my house, nestled in the hills of the Yarra Valley, some 60 odd kilometres north of the airfield, which you can see coming up in the photo right now. The prediction for the day was for a light northerly, stronger over 2,500 feet, which would help with our return journey. So we set off for the Yarra Valley and made our turn point, and then came back via the Cardinia Reservoir, which you'll see coming up there, and from there it was just a quick trip back to the airfield. This is Tony deluding himself into believing he can see whether the camera's working or not with his old man eyes. This is all part of our pre-flighting. Me, I've just given up and hope they all work. Every airfield or airport has a CTAF, or Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, where you advise aircraft in the vicinity of your intentions. And we've just notified such aircraft of that we were backtracking on runway 09 for immediate departure. Well, almost immediate. We do a couple of pre-flight checks, make sure our helmet's secure, the harness is secure, any loose objects are put away. We've got zip-up compartments underneath the seat, which we make sure they're right. I'm doing that now. We do a quick run-up on the engine to make sure that it's going to reach full power, check both circuits are functioning, check for full and free movement of the controls. That's the base bar, pushing it forward, backwards and sideways because it's a weight shift aircraft. And then we're ready to take to the sky. The wing with engine at full power leaves quite a turbulent wake, so Tony will give me about 30 seconds for that to clear before he also joins me in the sky heading north for the Yarra Valley. Here we're coming up on the town of Pakenham, some 10 kilometres north of the airfield, and that arrow is depicting Mount St Leonard's in the distance, which is just behind our destination. Still low over Pakenham, we were going to have to climb up a little bit because we're coming up onto some rising ground, which you can see there with Cardinia in the background. We like to keep a minimum of about 1,500 feet above ground to leave us more options in case we have an engine out as far as landing goes. Beneath a magnificent dynamic sky, you can see that Tony has overtaken me with some 40 kilometres to go. He has a high wing loading and an inherent higher top speed. With the Yarra Valley clearly in sight, it's time to check our fuel. We have a tube on the outside of the tank behind the seat, which we can only see with this highly sophisticated mirror technique. Fuel tanks hold about 18 litres, and we burn between 4 to 6 litres an hour depending on the wind direction. In a tailwind, we can afford to drop the revs and rely on the wind to push us over the ground using less fuel. But if it's a headwind and we want to get over the ground, we've either got to go slow or increase the revs. Flying at around 2,600 feet, Tony's covering the ground at about 40 or so kilometres per hour. That's the Warramates around to the left there, and then across the valley floor up to Mount Tilbywong, a commune up on top of the mountains there. You can see Mount St Leonard's almost dead straight ahead. While about 1,500 feet lower, I'm covering the ground at about 60 kilometres per hour and have flown out from underneath Tony. I just love looking at all the patterns you can see from the sky with the farmers' paddocks and rivers, and these aircraft offer a wonderful, unparalleled view. Coming into the southern parts of Healesville, we're just flying over the huge glass house with 60,000 gerbils in it called the Big Bouquet. And just a little further up the valley is an area that regularly floods when we have huge rains up in the mountains, as you'll see in the following photo. This is looking south from where we've come from after several days of fairly consistent rain, and you can see the Healesville race track there in the middle, covered in water, and there it is again, just to the left of my feet. You can also see St Leonard's, the little peak straight ahead now, and we're not far from my house up in those hills there. At this point, we're about an hour and 10 minutes into the flight with about 5 k's to go to our turnaround point at my place up in the hills. And for the last 10 minutes or so, I've been flying up the valley at about 1,000 feet above ground level to avoid the stronger winds at high altitudes. And I've managed to overtake Tony, who's a little bit higher. That's Maroondah Dam in the background to the east of Healesville, and now we're heading over the RACB Golf Club just below. Normally at this altitude and at this time of day there'd be quite a bit of turbulence caused by the sun's differential heating of the ground and creating thermals. However, the high level cirrus that has been shading the ground has only just moved off, so it's surprisingly smooth. I'm now on the radio to Marion, letting her know that I'm only a minute or so away. We've actually got the grandkids up there at the moment, so they should all be tumbling out onto the balcony to see this strange flying contraption arrive overhead. When Marion and I bought this property some 30 or more years ago, it had just a little unfinished flat roof house on it. But we'd fallen in love with the panoramic views and the isolation. So over the next 5 years we renovated the little muddy that we'd originally bought and then extended up and beyond with the generous help of my brother Glenn and my father, who's now passed away, to create our sanctuary up on the hill away from the madding crowds. The skyscape is magnificent from our balcony, and sometimes on those really, really quiet nights I walk out there, look up at the stars and feel very fortunate indeed. And it's so quiet you can almost hear those stars twinkling. Well, that was really good fun, and it took me back to my hang gliding days where we would fly in close to a hill looking for thermals rising up from the valleys below and then catch them and head on over the back. Yeah, that was really good. And now it's time to make our way back to the airport. I've sped things up, of course, and a little way down the valley we'll start climbing to get up into the high altitudes and higher winds, and it'll be a much quicker trip back. It took us probably the best part of an hour and 20 minutes to get to my place, and that was largely due to the fact that we had to climb up to over 2,500 feet in the hills north of Pakenham, because they rise up to about 1,000 feet, so we needed to leave ourselves a safety margin to get down to a suitable landing area in the case of an engine failure. I'm now flying over the Warramate Mountains, or mountains, more hills, at about 1,800 feet, and my ground speed is already up to nearly 80 kilometres per hour. And in the distance, you can't quite see it yet, but we're heading towards the Cardinia Dam, and I'm just checking my fuel with the mirror. It's a fail-safe system. Having flown higher, Tony's now approaching Cardinia Reservoir. And here he's panning around to see the Dandenongs in the background with the Sylvan Dam at the foot. And you can really see the way those ranges flow right into the high hills, but that we have to fly over to get to down into the flats beyond Pakenham where the airfield is. I'm approaching Emerald now, nestled in those very same hills, with Cardinia surprisingly not that far to the south. This dam was built in 1970 as a result of some Melbourne water shortages, and it was it took 3 years to build the walls to hold the dam in, and 4 years for the dam to fill. However, it doesn't have its own catchment area, so it's filled from the Sylvan Dam, which in turn is filled from the upper reservoirs like the Upper Yarra and the Thomson. And another interesting fact is that Melbourne is one of only 2 cities in the world where its drinking water comes from protected catchment areas. Well done, Melbourne. We're back with Tony now, and he's elected to fly over the centre of Cardinia Reservoir. Climbed up a fair old way. It's still got a fair few landing options there. There's one straight ahead on the end of that little spit. Not a good one, but it's certainly one there. And you can see over there just above his left glove there's a golf course which he could probably quite easily make. So once we get over this, it's downhill all the way to the airfield. For me, there's something quite magical about flying over water. I think it's the contrast of the blue against the green, particularly with dams, it's just the intricate coastline that you can see, tracing the folds and valleys in the hills that surround it. By now, Tony's probably 5 to 10 minutes ahead of me because he flew higher earlier. And whilst I'm looking at the airfield now, marked by the arrow, Tony's, I think, has already landed. And as you can see, the turbulence down low is a bit more pronounced. This is Tony coming in for the landing now on 09, so he's coming in from the west heading towards the east at 90 degrees. And those trees there certainly provide for their fair share of fun and shenanigans, with the wind rolling and rotoring in behind them. Rotor is when the wind rolls over the top of the trees and curves back down underneath, creating sink. Normally we try and land longer, but in this case Tony's come down a little earlier, and you can see that he's had quite a struggle getting down. But you can see the windsock there, it's a little bit crossed out of the north, or quite a bit crossed out of the north, but he's got himself down safe and sound. Well done. And now it's my turn. So I've flown over, had a look at the windsock, and I'm now approaching. I'm thinking to myself, yes, I'll land a bit longer, make sure I don't get caught by those trees. Haha, famous last words. So I've let myself get a little too low too early, even though I'm trying to get up above, but the sinking air has sort of grabbed me a little bit, but I've pulled on a bit more speed, and hopefully I'll be able to get out from behind these trees without any drama. Well, that wasn't to be the case, as you'll see with this shot from Tony. I came out from behind the trees, bang, hit the wind, and whoa! So a bit more acceleration, reset the craft, You can see the wind's quite cross there, and still quite a bit of turbulence, could be a bit of thermal, so very happy to get this down. At last. But what a fantastic flight up into the Yarra Valley. We've thoroughly enjoyed it, and now it's get back to the hangars or to our shipping container, tell our tall stories, and pack up. That was a bloody good flight. That was really, really good.
Got that one on video.
Hey?
Got that landing.
I was all over the shop.
Yeah, I knew you would be down near those fucking trees.
Yeah, and that was it anyway.
High. I actually